Hello and welcome back to the Soulful Speaking podcast. My guest today is Amy Vogel. She's an author and a woman's book coach dedicated to empowering women to share their stories, helping them cast a vision for a better world by turning their publishing dreams into reality. Amy, where did your speaking journey start?
Well, I guess technically I was in sales for about a decade. And so that's really where I cut my teeth. I figured out how to engage an audience, how to tweak a message and presentation to the context of the room, to the interests, I won't say needs, but the interests of who I was in front of. And then took a little break from that. Was always involved in church growing up and then into adulthood. And so I taught Bible studies, I taught groups, and eventually moved into a role where I was preaching every other week and teaching and leading. And so that sales experience benefited me in working for the church. And then now that cumulative experience gives me a real ease and comfort in front of people because it's just like this, a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. What was the transition like when you went from sales into preaching?
I've joked before that I went from selling software to selling Jesus. It's an aspect of that you want to convince people of, what you're saying, but you also want to make them think and help them make their own decisions. But, obviously preaching, there's a sacred text component to it. So what you really want to achieve when you're preaching is a little different than speaking, but it's the same premise in the connection that you want to make with the people that you're speaking to. And that was always my goal in sales, was relational connection and, continuing to develop that relationship. And so I had that same focus. It's actually called relational preaching. And so you relate the text that you're preaching on, you relate that in some way to your audience, to who's in the room. And then I preached during COVID too. So that was a really interesting experience because you preached to a screen.
How did you navigate the switch to COVID? What did you end up finding that worked for you?
Well, the biggest lesson I learned in preaching overall, and in sales as well, is that nobody knows what you're about to say. Nobody knows what you're supposed to say.
So you have been called now to help women share their stories and find their voices through publishing. How did that journey begin for you?
I had an idea to write a book, and one of the pastors at the church that I worked, I was actually, at this point, I was just a volunteer. And so he knew a guy in publishing, and the content that I wanted to write was not something that we could really find a book that spoke to it. And, it was one of those things where he was like, well, we can't find it, so you go write it, and then I'll present it to my friend. And that's exactly what happened. And so I was traditionally published for my first book. And the funny part about it was I didn't know what I didn't know. And so that was a great experience for me. Then the church that I was working for, which was part of a larger church, the larger church shut our part of, our church down. And I was burnt out. I was just toast. I was just done. And so I took, about 5 months off and just try to regroup, figure out where I was going to go with things. And I thought, you know what, I started writing again, and I'm sorry, the dogs just all of a sudden wanted to be on top of me. They were totally fine.
It happens a lot when there's a really juicy energy there. All of a sudden, all of the pets want to be included in what's happening.
Right. I'm like, yeah. So I was looking for a job and I couldn't really find anything that was, I mean, my background is so, I had a nearly 10-year gap between my church job and my sales job because I was at home with my girls. And so, it was just like, maybe I should just, maybe it's time for me to do my own thing. And I told several of my friends this and they were like, yeah, duh, we've been waiting for you to do this. And I was like, well, somebody could have told me, right? Like,
What was it that they were seeing that took you a long time to see?
just that I could do this on my own, that I could be an entrepreneur, that I could write my own books, publish my own books, speak. Um, and the coaching happened organically. I didn't set out my company for that to be a part of it, but I think just being the leader that I am and the person who sees things a little differently than other people. And I'm so, in the church, it's funny. We're supposed to appeal to everybody. But more than anything, I realized I worked so hard to be almost gender neutral in my appeal, and yet it was always the women that I connected with, and that makes sense. Being a woman, and having the experience that I did, and in my life, it just connects. Being a wife, being a mom, it just connects better. And so I finally let go of the idea that I needed to be the person for everybody, and just focused purely on helping women. And that's when things really started to ramp up and take off. And it's a process too, like writing my books. I knew I was writing for me and people like me. And so it became about aligning that message and that clarity with what I was already doing. My friends, they saw in me that I had the gifting, I had the capability where you just often can't see that yourself. You need people speaking into that. You need people who can see you more holistically than you see yourself. They don't live up here. So that gives them more freedom to say, no, you'd be really good at this. Go do it. And so I've learned to trust those nudges and those close people. And so I did. I went for it.
And now it sounds like you're one of the voices helping to do that for other women.
Yes. Yes.
What do you love about working for women now that you have followed that calling?
Yeah, it's that connection piece where we connect as women on so many levels. There's the spiritual, the emotional, the mental. Often our goals and dreams are similar. Our limiting beliefs and fears are similar. And so, there's tiers of the way that you can speak into it, but also there's this willingness that women have to pour into each other that makes us, for each other, what I found, in general, more coachable.
And what sort of emotional journey are you noticing in people as they write books?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I tell everybody, knowing from writing my own books, it's therapy. It is a therapeutic journey. If you're writing a book, you initially start out, you're thinking about yourself. And then there's this shift that happens somewhere around, if it's a nonfiction book, somewhere around chapter 4, chapter 5, the voice starts coming together. And then the ability to speak beyond your own experience and really connect with your ideal reader happens about a third of the way through the process. And then things really start to pick up.
What sort of challenges do the writers that you coach face even getting started?
Generally speaking, the question is, I don't know where to get the content from. There's this idea that you have to create it out of thin air, when in truth, it's all already within you. It's all already in there, but we think we have to have it easily accessible in our minds, at our fingertips, before we can start. That's not the creative process. The creative process is the initial is there, the initial idea, the initial forward movement is there. Then once you start writing, the rest of it comes together. There is a clarifying of motivation, of message that that really has to happen as you write. It's not just going
Mm-hmm.
to instantly download. You've got to write it.
Yeah. Yeah. It strikes me how similar that is to when someone is speaking,
Mm-hmm.
and the number of times that I've had people generally come to me when they're going to do a talk and or tell their story
Yep.
at at either end of a spectrum. One
Mm-hmm.
end, they're actually saying, I don't have a story that's interesting. I don't know what I would say. They think it's a complete blank.
Yeah.
And whether it's one on one or in a group session, they'll talk all about how they don't have the thing. And I'll listen and take notes and then go, here's the first draft of
Right.
all the things you said when you were saying you didn't have anything. Very
Right.
similar. It's the talking of it
Mm-hmm.
is like the mirror image to the you got to sit down and write it, and then
Yeah.
the written book comes out differently than you even imagined it would.
Yeah.
At the other end of the spectrum are people who are saying they have too much, they don't know where to focus. And
Mm-hmm.
while they're talking about all of the things that could be in it, there's, I'll take notes.
Yeah.
Here's your first draft. These things that you said are not in this one.
Yeah.
This was
Right.
the through line of what you just said.
Right.
What words of advice do you have for people just finding their voice? And that might be speaking, finding their voice, or
Mm-hmm.
writing, finding their voice, or both.
I think it would be there would be three things. One, you want to, and we did this at the top of before we started recording. We set an intention, not just what you want to say. What do you want the person, the people that you're speaking to, the people that you're writing to? What do you want them to experience?
Mm-hmm.
And maintain that intention. Keep that in mind. It's about service. Actually, tomorrow I'm in the recovery community and I'm going to go share my story for the first time. And I'm probably more nervous about that than I am about a business talk because one, I'm talking about myself, but it's
Mm-hmm.
service. I'm
Yeah.
there to share my experience, strength, and hope. And so I'm like, well, I hope I can do that, right? I hope that someone is encouraged. So I'd say it's about setting that intention, and having an idea, even if that's not the way that things go, having an idea of what you want the reader or the listener to experience,
Mm-hmm.
and then letting that organically develop.
What do you hope they experience when you speak to the recovery community?
Yeah, that's really about it's about encouragement to stay sober, to continue one day at a time, to press into the 12 steps, to press into community, to press into the fellowship, to service, all of the things that we learn along the way and try to teach new people. But really, it comes down to that one day at a time. It
Mm-hmm.
literally is. You got today.
Yeah.
That's all you got.
Yeah.
And so my few one days at a time, I hope will show you that there is experience, strength, and hope to be gained as you press into the recovery.
Yeah. It
More
feels like what you said at the beginning about relating, you know, when you were preaching,
yeah,
finding a way to relate it to people in the room.
yeah,
That's there in the talk, the service
hmm
talk that you're getting in the recovery community tomorrow.
yeah.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
Yeah.
yeah,
And part of the point of relating it to them when you're preaching is so that it's real, to take it out of the book and into their lives. So
right,
it feels like there's things have kind of come full circle in some way because that thread of really making it real for people in the room and being of service to the people in the room has been there the whole time and is showing up in both of those environments.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and really not making it, even though I'm talking about me, not making it about me. That's
Hmm.
that is the best advice that I've gotten, which is yes, you're talking about your favorite subject, which is me, which I would argue is not my favorite subject. Theology is, but um, making sure that you're there for the people
Yeah.
rather than there for yourself. So I try to carry that through wherever I'm speaking, and it's about the other thing I would say is intention, being present. Again,
Hmm.
if you're so focused on what you're saying, and if you're saying it right, like my perfectionist tendencies will definitely rear their ugly heads, but um, if you're focused on what you're saying and making eye contact and being present with the people in the room, that's what, regardless of what you say, that's what people will remember is your authenticity to be with them rather than to stand up there and deliver the best speech you know in the history of time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. If the inner critics are driving and going for perfection, it actually will not be nearly as good.
mm-hmm.
Uh, it will not serve the people in the room nearly as much as
Yeah,
if focus is on the intention and is on service. And then, like you said, you're connected and you're listening to
yeah,
their half of the conversation. And
yeah,
it's different than if you're sitting down with one on one with someone that you're sponsoring or
yeah,
one on one with someone that you're coaching. If it's a
yeah,
different environment, the conversation is different. And yet, when we shift to seeing it as a conversation,
mm-hmm.
it really touches people in a very, very different way. And
Yeah,
they can feel seen when
yeah,
you're on stage talking about you,
yep, right,
but you're on stage talking about you for the sake of them.
yeah,
I did a marketing program where they would say, you know, when you're talking about yourself, whether it's writing a marketing post, you are being of service. You're doing your
mm-hmm.
teaching. You're living what you're here to do. And it's like you're their Yoda. You're
Yeah,
telling the story thinking that you're Luke Skywalker, but what you actually are is you are their Yoda.
right,
And
right,
they're putting themselves in your shoes the
yeah,
whole time, hearing what you've been through
mm-hmm.
and thinking, maybe it is possible for me.
Right,
Maybe it is
right,
possible for me.
yeah. I
I,
carry that through. I carry that through in my business talks too, and I think I think people, like you said, they think of themselves as the main character, as Luke Skywalker in their story. But when you're presenting something written or spoken, actually the person you're presenting to is the main character,
mhm.
and so you're just there as the guide. You're just there, and so that leads me to the third thing is you've got to have some fun. Do not take yourself so seriously. Oh my gosh, like there is nothing more difficult for me as a professional speaker is to like my heart just goes out to somebody who is just so locked up and or so um and you find this so much in the church where they're just raging against the machine. They've got a point and they are just driving it home. Like, no, just soften it a little bit, have some fun, uh, just just make it something that people will remember, whether they specifically remember everything you said or not. They will remember you, and they'll remember what they need to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know about the people you've seen. I know that I have been the person who's so intense and driving it home
Yeah.
when my passion for something got mixed together with the inner critic being in charge and a part of me that
Yes.
was worried that I wasn't enough. So, like you
Mm-hmm.
said at one point, my attention was on me.
Yeah.
And I'm very passionate about this topic, yet the part of me that doesn't think I'm enough is actually in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that moment of like, I'm speaking and I'm pushing and I'm driving it home because I think it's really important.
Yeah.
And somebody might have even said this to me at some point. Who are you trying to convince? You or them?
Right. Yeah.
Rather
Yeah.
than I do believe in this thing.
Yeah.
and I'm going to set an intention for what I want you to experience and then lean into that conversation. And I love the having fun along the way. It can also be really tempting to, when we're doing serious stuff, serious, important things that we are devoted
Mm-hmm.
to forget that life is a journey with a lot of twists and turns, and to be in the human experience while we're doing it.
Absolutely. And humans make mistakes, and humans forget to, I cannot tell you how many times this has happened to me, forget to bring water with them, and you get that little tickle in your throat that you can't, you think one little will do it. And then you end up having a total coughing, meltdown, hacking fit. It's happened so much. I now remember. It's happened enough. I now remember to bring water with me. But
Well, you got to learn somehow, you got to learn somehow. You could have
right,
stopped because of that instead
right,
of treating it as a learning experience.
yeah,
Oh, next time I will bring water, as opposed to, oh, I keep having these coughing fits. I guess I'm not meant to be a speaker.
right,
And
right. No,
I'm,
no, no, no. It's just you're talking a lot, and your mouth gets dry, your throat gets dry. It's just you're human, and you know those those moments that happened to me actually made the audience engage and lean in a little more. They
yeah,
were having a connectional moment. Those are the things that make you you, and those are the things that make people lean in, and
yeah,
that's super important. You want the
yeah,
lean in.
yeah. You want the lean in. They can relate to you when you have a coughing fit. And I know this is true in theater. So when I was a young actor, before I really started directing, we always have this impression that like someone that we're auditioning for is
Mm,
against us.
right, right.
And speakers can have this feeling that the audience is against us because the
Mm-hmm,
nervous system is dealing with it.
mm-hmm,
In reality, the opposite is true. When you're
right,
going into audition for a play, every time the door opens, that director is thinking, please let this be the one. Please let this be the one. They're
mm,
rooting for you because there's a
mm-hmm,
way that they're rooting for themselves in rooting
right,
for you.
right,
In audiences, people gave their time to go listen to you. So
right.
they are rooting for you from the moment you start.
Yeah,
And in live speaking and live theater, everybody loves the moments where something is weird. I still
right.
remember a moment from when I was 19 years old, seeing a play at my college and being there for the day when they did something in the fight scene wrong.
Mm,
They did the wrong moves at the wrong time, and the shield hit someone's mouth and their tooth went flying across the
oh
stage.
goodness. Yep.
And I remember being there when the staircase in the musical Evita, like
Oh
the
god.
curtain and the staircase latching moved at the wrong time.
Uh,
And this curtain behind the staircase ripped in front of my eye. It
uh,
wasn't like, oh, how dare you? I want my money back.
right.
It was, I got to be there that day.
Right.
And it's
Absolutely.
part of what makes it so vibrant and alive. When people are pre programmed and doing it perfect, like you said
Yep.
earlier, we can feel that they know exactly what's happening next.
Absolutely.
Whereas when there's
Absolutely.
a little of, I don't know what I'm going to say next
Mm-hmm.
exactly, or the dog just crawled across me,
right. Right.
it has a vibrance and an aliveness.
Mm-hmm.
If people are falling in love with you and want to know, and they're driving their cars and they want to know how they can connect with you and get to know you more outside of podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, the two easiest ways are really my website. So it's pretty simple, www.amywvogel.com, and then my social medias, particularly on Instagram and TikTok. Instagram is awvogel. It's the one outlier because it was my personal account for a long, long time. And then TikTok is amywvogel.com. And both of those, you'll get a glimpse not only of who I am as a person, but just really what I do and what my books are about.
Fantastic. And before we go into our Pivo pivot, do you have any final words for people listening?
Be you. Just be you. That is what people signed up to see.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right. Pivo pivot. Do your best to blurt answers in one word or a short phrase.
I'll try.
What is your favorite word?
Mama.
What is your least favorite word?
Oh gosh, so many. Prevaricate.
And what does prevaricate mean?
It means to lie, and I only know that because my mom does crosswords. So thanks, Mom, if you're listening. You're probably not.
Thank you. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Womb work, especially dancing. So embodiment, womb work, where I'm moving. So yeah, dancing. I'll say that.
Awesome. What turns you off?
Administrative tasks, administration. Yeah.
What is your favorite curse word?
Oh, fuck.
What sound or noise do you love?
Um, baby laughs.
What sound or noise do you hate?
This is easy. Anything repetitive. Anything that just goes over and over, including my children singing, drives me insane.
What profession other than the ones you have already tried would be fun to try?
Marine biologist. That's what I wanted to be when I grew up, when I was little.
What profession would you not like to do?
Oh, accountant. Yeah, terrible at math. Terrible at spreadsheets.
What do you hope people say about you on your 100th birthday?
Oh gosh, that I always saw them and loved them for exactly who they were.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for letting us see you and love you for exactly who you are. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you. It has.